Very good. So this is Paul back with you, and I'd like to thank Nanette and our authors, and invite all of our speakers to join me on screen for a Q&A session. Also joining us will be Charles Ray Taylor of Villanova University and Abhishek of the Institute of Management Technology in Ghaziabad, India, who partnered on the research on roadblock advertising. Welcome back, everybody. We just had a question for you, Nate and Delia, and that was from Holly, who asked if you could elaborate on the short-term effects and the nuances associated with it. She didn't quite understand the point that you were making.
So is she referring specifically to the chart or our initial I
think it was earlier in the presentation.
Okay. Right. So I think it's an interesting nuanced effect in that we would predict that exposure to a disclosure in general, right, would elicit a degree of skepticism. We found that to be kind of the opposite pattern, right? So exposure to one disclosure actually reduced skepticism, whereas exposure to multiple disclosures and multiple influencer content actually resulted in the highest degree of skepticism. So it is nuanced, it is counterintuitive to some degree.
Got it. And Holly just got back to me and said chart.
So the chart, right. So the lines themselves indicate consumers' initial degree of skepticism measured at time one. And you can see that we have a mean value, we have a standard deviation value at +1, a standard deviation value at -1. And so at time one, the individuals who reported the highest degree of skepticism, right, that gray line, the standard deviation of +1, they reported the most negative brand attitudes and the most negative purchase, or the lowest purchase intent. And what the chart indicates is that among those with the highest initial skepticism, they saw the most improvement over time in terms of their brand attitudes and purchase intent, which arguably is what we'd refer to as a relative sleeper effect.
Got it. Thank you. I think no more questions, so I think that explains it. For the Roadblock team, I have a question from Catherine regarding the unexpected advertising attracting more attention. This is a good question. Have you or has there been research done on whether it has a positive effect or a negative effect?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Regarding unexpected advertising,
yes.
I also saw the question from Catherine in the Q&A box. So what we found in this research is that the moderate levels, so pop-ups, are those that scored the lowest in terms of perceived intrusiveness and perceived and attitude toward the advertisement format. So one explanation for this result is because pop-ups require an extra effort to close them, to close the window, and so maybe that this extra effort required from participants contribute to these lowest levels of attitude regarding the unexpectedness, and they interfere with the main task. So which perform better here is the high level of unexpectedness when the floaters really moves on the web page but lands on the right hand side of the web page, so doesn't really create or require an extra effort from the viewer to close them.
Got it. Thank you. And that was my bad. I didn't see Catherine's note until the Roadblock team was up, but I do have a question for the Roadblock team. And that has to do with why things work differently for familiar brands. Is it because more brands, the more familiar a brand is, it has something to do with processing time? that's definitely for the Roadblock team.
Okay, I can speak to this. I think that absolutely is the case. You've got higher awareness and recognition, and in the paper we talk about processing fluency. But I do think it's interesting in academic studies today. I think awareness is often an under-researched topic, and Lars Bergqvist and I recently had a piece in Journal of Advertising that speaks to this. But keeping top of mind awareness is very important for familiar brands. But I do think Paul, you're right on the mark, in that it's that familiarity, this previous knowledge draws attention, makes it easier to process, and leads to better results for familiar brands. But we also found that Roadblock advertising does help new brands as well, just not to the same extent.
Got it. Thank you. And let's see, Scott, Heidi asks, what is the definition of a creative ad within the context of creative ads increasing attention?
Okay, great. There's a couple things I want to mention ahead of time about all the ads. Going back to Emna's comment, all the ads showed up in an expected place for an ad. So they were the expected location on the page. Second, they all had movement and they all had flashing lights. Okay. What was different about the creative ads, they had something fun about them. For example, the one for TGI Fridays. So what it had was sort of what appeared to be a picture of a person with a bunch of hamburgers over the person. So you could sit there and click on each of the hamburgers and expose what he looked like. Essentially, it was naked. Okay. For the Nike ad, it was a very interesting shoe that bounced around a box in certain ways. And it was just the cleverest little thing. And it's not like they flashed more. It's not like they moved more. They all did. But some of them were sort of like a really fun kind of a game that really took advantage of the media in some way, shape, or form. I think probably if you talked about them in terms of creative templates, they used predominantly activation.
Got it. So it was highly interactive, basically.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. People like these ads, definitely.
Good. Well, we've answered all of the audience's questions. So as I think everybody will realize, today's papers had a lot to do with attention and frequency. And so this is for everyone. Attention is a kind of a huge issue in the US, I know, and also in the UK. There's something called the Attention Council, which goes across the pond. I think it's also in Australia, very important. There's several companies in Australia working out of it. And it's becoming highly debated in terms of simple questions like, is more attention always better? Can advertising work at low levels of attention? And indeed, there are folks that believe that the only thing that counts is inattention, because there's some level of advertising effectiveness, if there's any attention at all. Many people believe that advertising on television tends to be low involvement. I think it's something that you said, Scott, you need, it's kind of a reminder, you need this. So not that everybody has to answer, but I'm also interested in internationally differences in attention about attention. Is this a subject everywhere? And is it as simple as more attention is better, or not so simple? Scott, why don't you take it? Yeah, for starters.
Attention is something we don't know enough about, and Ray's really to the point on this. We just need to understand attention better. Is attention always better? Well, I think most of the time it is. I've got one particular effect where attention in certain situations is a negative thing. So although we can say attention, great, we don't know what people are thinking about when you have that attention. Most of the time we assume it's good. Some of the times it might be bad. For example, if a celebrity sort of says the wrong thing at the wrong time, then the brands that they endorse, obviously that's attention they don't want. So what negative thoughts might people have? So, great that we have eye tracking equipment, but we still don't have brain tracking equipment that sort of says, oh, positive or negative thoughts. So that might be helpful. But generally, I'd still say I want people looking at my ad, but there's plenty of times we know from the eye tracking, they never look at the ad, but they certainly remember that there was an ad there and it happened to be ours. So yeah, I'm still a fan of attention.
That's one of the issues. That's one of the issues. There's several ways to measure attention. So there's eye tracking, there's neuro, there's simple, day after recall and things like that. And some are representing attention almost as an emotional score. And, that may be difficult to do without neuro. But what about other countries in India or France or Romania? Is attention a big issue, or is this something which is mostly Australia, UK, and the US?
If I might intervene.
Go on, Delia, don't worry.
Thank you so much. So maybe I'm not referring to Romania in particular, but I want to say something about influencer advertising and measuring attention in influencer advertising, because of course, the majority of the studies have no measurements of the attention, what we saw so far. There are, however, studies who use eye tracking. That is the most common way of measuring attention in influencer advertising. But this is an interesting thing, because we tried in our study here and in other studies to replicate the way people consume social media advertising and the way they engage with social media influencers. And this is happening so rapidly. And sometimes they skip things and people are, so it's a bit tricky. My point is that maybe concerning social media influencer advertising, I don't see a better solution than eye tracking at this moment. Responding to your question, attention is, of course, in the focus of the research concerning advertising in general in Romania. Maybe it's not that important, not that highlighted as in the US, Australia, UK. However, regarding influencer marketing, I think that that's a good point. I think more research should be performed focusing on how attention is influencing stuff in this field.
Emna, how about France?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just maybe if I can add some explanation to Scott's point of view is maybe regarding attention, it's not how people look at advertising or brands or like influencer, social media. It's also about how is this attention. Maybe that attention is not really measured with real fixation, but is more covert attention. Yeah, people know that at the right hand of the website we have some advertising, so they are aware of this existence of this advertising, and they saw them, but indirectly. So it's more about covert attention, and maybe that advertiser can look also regarding how advertisement may hold attention, not only capture attention. If advertiser can keep this attention long time, the consumer attention, maybe with this kind of creativity, it could be a good, interesting way to hold attention and not just only capture attention of consumers especially online advertisement.
Yeah. Abhishek or Biswajita, you have the last minute.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So in India, of course, in the middle of too many clutter, everyone is vying for attention, but more or less, it is the peripheral route versus the central route we are talking about of information processing. Too much of anything is bad, they say. Similarly, as I would agree with Emna, so catching attention and holding it for long, and that could lead to more elaboration as well. And this elaboration of thought might go in a positive or negative direction. So that is another point of skepticism, that to what extent I want your attention to be with me. Do I want you to elaborate on the stimulus that I provide too much or not? Or do I want you to stop just at the point of transaction and that's it? So that is where I would leave my.
Very good. And exactly on time. So thank you so much.
I just
thanks,
wanted
everybody.
to add one last line.
Go right ahead. Go ahead.
See, I have been talking with many practitioners in Indian context, and there one of the key things which they try to focus on is that, and that's a big discourse which is there, is about regulation. So attention is definitely there, but then a lot of it is about regulation. How do we ensure that the people who are getting exposed with the ads are not getting exposed to wrong portrayal? And that is a big issue in Indian advertising context. So,
interesting. And when you say regulation and wrong portrayal, you meaning getting the message
in the sense that the information that is getting conveyed, that is not wrong, that is not wrong information, that is so that the customers are not getting fooled by the information, or the content of the information is not. So a lot of focus there is on ensuring that the correct information goes, rather than how it is going to have an impact. So discourse is more on ensuring that right information goes to the, and there's a lot of government is also putting a lot of effort to ensure that it happens, and therefore the advertisers are also, the agencies are also trying to ensure that we comply to that. And how do we ensure that we remain within the realms of the law and still deliver the message that the brand has to deliver?
Understood. Thanks. So thanks everybody for the very interesting work. And for a very good discussion. In the meantime, we have an Audience Time Science 2023 call for content, which is open for submissions through December 16th. We hope you get a chance to attend the Attribution Analytics Accelerator on November 14th through the 18th. You can go to the arf.org to register and see what's coming up. And as previously mentioned, if you could take a quick 2-question survey that will pop up on your screen. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.